새 정부 들어 처음 열리는 세계 정세 토론 2025 한반도 심포지엄. 트럼프 2기 국제질서 격변 새 정부의 대응 전략은 미국 최우선 신고립주의 파고 속에 통상, 외교, 안보, 지각 변동의 한복판에 선 대한민국. 계엄과 탄핵, 정권 교체, 경랑 속에서 출범한 이재명 정부. 국내외 최고 전문가들이 심도 있는 대응 전략을 제시합니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. I'm the MC for the event. I'm Oh Se-hyuk and Jo Hae-rin from Yonhap News TV. It's a pleasure to meet you all today. Thank you very much for coming to this event despite your very busy schedules. The National News Agency Yonhap News, the Ministry of Unification, and the Institute for National Security Strategy and the Yonhap News Northeast Asia Center are co-hosting the Korea Peninsula Symposium 2025. Thank you, and I welcome you all. Yonhap News Agency is the largest domestic news agency in 22 major cities around the world, is operating an overseas reporting network of about 35 correspondents, and through timely and accurate coverage, it is playing a leading role in building a better future. This symposium, under the theme New Administration Strategic Response to Seismic Shift in the International Order during Trump's second term, brings together renowned experts in diplomacy, security, and trade from both home and abroad, will assess the situation facing the Korean Peninsula amid rapidly changing global circumstances and explore the way forward together on this meaningful occasion. This event will be conducted with simultaneous interpretation in both Korean and English. Please use the receivers if you require interpretation. Now we will officially begin the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. Many guests have honored this event with their presence despite their busy schedules. I will be calling out their names, and please give them a warm round of applause as they're introduced one by one. First of all, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Woo Won-sik. Please give him a big round of applause. And Mr. Kim Byung-gi, Acting President of the Democratic Party, Floor Leader, and Song Won-seok, Floor Leader of the People Party, Power Party. They're on their way, and once they arrive, we will introduce them to you once again. Next, Oh Se-hun, Mayor of the Seoul Metropolitan Government. A big round of applause is in order. He's also on his way, and we'll also introduce him once he arrives. Next, Lee Gi-hun, a member of the Democratic Party of the Republic of Korea, is here. Next, Lee Gyu-yeon, Presidential Secretary for Public Relations and Communications at the Office of the President. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Next, Kim Nam-jung, Vice Minister of Unification, is here with us today. Next, His Excellency, Japanese Ambassador to Korea, Mitsushima Goichi, is here today. Big round of applause is in order. Next, His Excellency Togolani Edris Mabura, his Ambassador of Tanzania to the Republic of Korea, is here today with us. Next, His Excellency Ileka Atoki, Ambassador of the Democratic Republic of Korea, Congo to Korea. Please welcome the Ambassador with a big round of applause. Next, Mr. Jin Ok-dong, Chairman of the Shinhan Financial Group, is here with us today. And Chairman Cho Yong-byung of the Korean Federation of Banks is here today. Last but not least, we have a CEO and President of Yonhap News Agency, Hwang Dae-il. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. And in addition, there are many distinguished guests who have generously dedicated their time and support to this event. And they're here to honor with us with their presence, but in the interest of time, we will not be able to introduce each and every one of them individually. Especially, we hope to welcome many cabinet members of the new government, but due to pending procedures underway for confirmation hearings, they were not able to attend this meeting. Next, we'll proceed with the national ceremony. Please, I want to ask everyone to please stand up from your seats and face the national flag in front.
국기에 대하여
Pledge to the national flag of the Republic of Korea. at ease. Please take your seats. Now we're going to invite Hwang Dae-il, CEO and President of Yonhap News Agency, for his opening remarks. Please welcome President Hwang with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests. I'm Hwang Dae-il, President and CEO of Yonhap News Agency. Let me express my gratitude to all the distinguished participants who are here at the Korea Peninsula Symposium 2025, co-hosted by the Yonhap News Agency, the Ministry of Unification, the Institute for National Security Strategy, and Yonhap News Northeast Asia Center. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to also thank Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly Woo Won-sik, Lawmaker Kim Byung-gi, Acting President and Floor Leader of the Democratic Party, Lawmaker Song Won-seok, Floor Leader of the People Power Party, Vice Minister Kim Nam-jung of Unification, Oh Se-eun, Mayor of the Seoul Metropolitan Government, His Excellency Ambassador Mitsushima Koichi of Japan to Korea, and many other distinguished participants. I would also like to express my deep gratitude to President Lee Jae-myung for sending a congratulatory message despite his very busy schedules, including his work to stabilize people's livelihoods and his recent attendance at the G7 summit. The 11th Korean Peninsula Symposium is the first large-scale forum to be held in Korea since the inauguration of the new administration. And today, we have with us lawmaker Cho Jung-sik, a six-term lawmaker and the chairman of the Foreign Affairs, Security and Unification Advisory Council of the Democratic Party, who will deliver the keynote speech, which is going to further elevate the status of the symposium. The global free trade order, which has been steadily expanding since the establishment of the WTO in 1995, has now faced a crisis due to the all-out tariff war of the second Trump administration. In addition, uncertainties are increasing in the global economy, and tectonic shifts are occurring in the fields of trade, diplomacy, and security. The restructuring of global supply chains due to the competition between the US and China is also another factor that makes the diplomatic choices of the new Korean government more difficult and complex. Geopolitical conflicts around the world, such as the Russia-Ukraine war and the armed conflicts between Israel and Iran, are also challenges that are faced by the new administration. Expectations are growing that tensions between the two Koreas, which had been heading toward a confrontation, will gradually ease with the inauguration of the Lee Jae-myung government, and that inter-Korean dialogue between the two Koreas may resume. However, the situation surrounding the Korean Peninsula are expected to be quite turbulent, with China's threat to the Taiwan Strait and the West Sea seriously damaging the security order in Northeast Asia. Yesterday marked the 75th anniversary of the Korean War. We overcame the deep wounds of the war, achieved a miracle on the Han River, and developed democracy to the world's highest level. This is the result of a long tradition of Korean people in overcoming difficulties with excellent leadership and promoting national harmony. If we are able to work together to continue this tradition of overcoming numerous challenges, we will be able to overcome the current crises as well and join the ranks of the world's most powerful countries. In particular, I believe that the new government, based on people's sovereignty, will be able to overcome many challenges and difficulties at home and abroad with a more pragmatic and balanced strategy. The theme of today's symposium is New Administration's Strategic Response to Seismic Shift in the International Order during Trump's second term. And we have many leading experts from home and abroad in the fields of diplomacy, security, and trade, so I believe that they will be able to offer clear diagnosis of the current changes in the international order and propose optimal solutions for all of us. I believe that the wisdom that we gather through heated discussions and insights will inspire the new government of Korea to formulate policies and help to prepare a roadmap for national policy initiatives. As a national news agency, Yonhap News Agency is committed to continuing to provide support as Korea becomes a diplomatic and security powerhouse and advances further on the road to reunification. I would like to once again thank you very much to all of you who is here with us today despite their busy schedules. Thank you.
President Hwang Dae-il, thank you very much for your warm opening remarks. Round of applause is in order. He has officially opened the Korea Peninsula Symposium 2025 with his opening remarks. Thank you very much for your kind words. Next, we will hear a congratulatory message from President Lee Jae-myung. The speech will be read by Mr. Lee Kyu-yeon, Presidential Secretary for Public Relations and Communication at the Office of President. Please welcome a Presidential Secretary with a big round of applause. I am the Presidential Secretary working at the Office of the President. Of course, we're working very hard to put in place the new framework for governance. Nevertheless, and of course, this Korean Peninsula Symposium is a must visit symposium. I believe I'm here on behalf of the President. So congratulations once again, and I will read the congratulatory message sent by the President. I sincerely congratulate you on the hosting of the 11th Korean Peninsula Symposium. I extend my gratitude to President and CEO Hwang Dae-il and the officials of the Yonhap News Agency for organizing this meaningful occasion, and all distinguished guests from home and abroad for their attendance. The world has entered an unprecedented era of great transformation changes in the global economic and security environment. As geopolitical tensions and competition over technological hegemony intensify, global supply chains are becoming fragmented, while nationalism and protectionism are becoming widespread. Such global uncertainties and external risks should be responded by a strategic approach, which is urgently needed right now. The government, through a pragmatic diplomacy centered on national interest, will turn this complex global crisis into an opportunity to maximize national interest. Based on our solid ROK-US alliance, we will work to strengthen Korea-Japan and Korea-China cooperation, and also for relations with neighboring countries, pursue an approach grounded in national interest and pragmatism. To ensure that our companies can compete and grow in the global market, we will also actively respond to changes in the global trade environment. To promote economic security, we will also strengthen solidarity with key countries. At the same time, the Republic of Korea will fulfill its responsibilities and roles as a member of the international community. We will participate more actively and contribute to resolving various global issues. Through this, we will broaden the horizons of our diplomacy, elevate our international standing, and expand Korea's economic territory. The Korean Peninsula Symposium has long served as a venue, an important platform for discussing Korea's diplomatic and security strategies. I hope today will also be a meaningful occasion for shaping deep insights and engaging in constructive dialogue. I wish you all continued success and happiness. Read on behalf of President Lee Jae-myung, June 26, 2025. Yes, we sincerely thank President Lee for sending his message for Yonhap News Korea Peninsula Symposium despite his busy schedule managing national affairs. Also join me in giving a big round of applause to Mr. Lee Kyu-yeon, Chief of Public Relations and Communication, for reading the speech. Presidential Secretary Lee has informed us in advance that he must leave immediately for his next engagement. Thank you very much. Next, we will invite the Speaker of the National Assembly, Woo Won-sik, for his congratulatory speech. Please welcome the Speaker of the National Assembly with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Won-sik, Speaker of the National Assembly. I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my congratulations on hosting the 11th Korean Peninsula Symposium. The theme is New Administration's Strategic Response to Seismic Shift in the International Order during Trump's second term, which is very relevant and timely. I'd like to express my gratitude to President and CEO Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency and staff members for organizing this event. Since the inauguration of the new administration, President Lee has resumed summit diplomacy, and negotiations on tariffs with the U.S. have resumed as well. And it is important to conclude these negotiations successfully. And based on the strong ROK-US alliance, we need to further expand cooperation with relevant countries. And at the same time, it is critical for Korea to continue to work to expand its economic territory. And it is time to step up our diplomatic efforts. The international order is changing rapidly, and it is critical to re-examine Korea's strategic direction and chart our way forward. And so, against this backdrop, it is very meaningful that we're holding this Korean Peninsula Symposium. Once again, thank you very much to President and CEO Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency. I understand that there are many experts from home and abroad in the important fields of security and diplomacy, and the National Assembly will continue to provide all the necessary support for our new endeavors. For the past 2 weeks, we have seen major shifts in the international order, and many events have taken place. The war between Israel and Iran is becoming more unpredictable, and it is having wide implications not only on the Korean Peninsula but around the world. So we need to keep updated on what's happening around the world, especially in the Middle East. A ceasefire news came out, but we still experience a lot of uncertainties in the region, and these are increasing tensions in Northeast Asia as well. And the war in Ukraine is still ongoing, and we can never predict when and how this will come to an end. So we need to keep vigil and continue to examine the situations around the world. And at the same time, the topic of peace on the Korean Peninsula is not just a matter between the two Koreas, but also it is important for the region. So now it is time to put our heads together and think about strategic directions in addressing the situations on the Korean Peninsula. Now, amid these changes, matters of security need to be addressed in a bipartisan manner. We experienced the declaration of martial law and the impeachment of the president, and during these difficult times, the National Assembly continued on with their diplomacy efforts in order to reduce any problems that could cause by the void in the administration, and the National Assembly took part in improving their roles. And in doing so, we realized that there is high potential and possibility for bipartisan diplomacy because our political party leaders were able to join forces together. And the special diplomatic envoy dispatched by the National Assembly Speaker visited many countries together with the delegation from the National Assembly, and these delegations produced meaningful results, and we were able to see the potential of utilizing parliamentary diplomacy in advancing our interests. There are many pending issues between the political parties within the National Assembly, but we were able to see that all these different political parties can work together in promoting our common national interests. And this shows that bipartisan diplomatic activities conducted by the National Assembly members can play a big part. So I'm very glad to see that this new era of parliamentary diplomacy has opened. Secondly, we realized that the resilience of Korean democracy is a strong asset for us. During the difficult political turmoil, we met with many country leaders, and I personally met with more than 100 leaders from 72 countries to express our commitment to diplomacy and how Korean diplomacy and how Korean democracy is resilient. And we were able to get positive responses from all these leaders of different countries, and they highly praised resilience of Korean democracy. And this whole experience of demonstrating how resilient we are in protecting and preserving our democracy is serving as a very powerful diplomatic asset that we can continue to leverage. We admit that we're in a very difficult situation, but we have demonstrated our capabilities in terms of diplomacy and foreign affairs management, and our strong resilience and democracy and capabilities will continue to be essential. And since May this year, the National Assembly has conducted a number of seminars, and we've launched the Korea Consensus platform. And this will serve as a platform to encompass different political orientations and combine forces of different lawmakers. And this platform will further improve our parliamentary diplomacy so that we can create a conducive environment for Korea in promoting our national interests. And the National Assembly will continue to work hard to support the Korean government's diplomatic efforts. And I look forward to getting your insights and your input so that we can develop better strategies going forward. And with that, I'd like to once again thank the Yonhap News Agency for this opportunity. Thank you.
회장님께 여러분
Thank you very much. A big round of applause is in order for National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik. I expect that he will make great dedications to our cause going forward. Next, we're going to invite our co-host of the event, Mr. Kim Nam-jung, Vice Minister of the Ministry of Unification. Please welcome Vice Minister to the stage with a big round of applause. Distinguished guests, it's a pleasure to meet you. I am Kim Nam-jung, Vice Minister of Unification. I sincerely welcome all of you who have joined us for the Korean Peninsula Symposium. Amidst a rapidly shifting international order, the Korean Peninsula finds itself standing at a new crossroads, and at this critical juncture, we have come together to reflect on the present and prepare for the future through this very meaningful occasion. On that note, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to President Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency and all those involved for their dedicated efforts in organizing this event. I would also like to extend my gratitude to many guests for gracing this event despite their very busy schedules. Mr. Woo Won-sik, National Assembly Speaker, Mr. Kim Byung-gi, Song Eun-seok, floor leaders of the both parties, Oh Se-hun, Mayor of the Seoul Metropolitan Government, His Excellency Koichi Mizushima, Japanese Ambassador to Korea, and also Representative Mr. Cho Jung-sik, the keynote speaker for today. Furthermore, we're joined today by some of the most distinguished experts in the fields of trade, diplomacy, and security, individuals of unparalleled insight and experience, and I look forward to their in-depth discussions that will unfold. We're now faced with intensifying U.S.-China tensions, a shifting global trade order, and ongoing wars in various parts across the world, a time ripe with uncertainty. North Korea declared its two hostile states doctrine, suspending the inter-Korean dialogue quite some time ago. Against this backdrop of these formidable challenges, we need to gather wisdom more desperately than ever before. On June 4th, the new administration was inaugurated, taking its first step to address these difficult issues. In response to unproductive acts of hostility that have escalated tension, the government requested a halt to the launching of anti-North Korean leaflets and made the decision to stop loudspeaker broadcasts toward the north. As a result, the border residents who had long been troubled by noise and anxiety have finally regained a small yet precious sense of peace in their daily lives. Taking a step further to overcome confrontation and conflict through dialogue, and produce tangible outcomes that lead to peace and coexistence, the government intends to carefully listen to the voices of our people, closely cooperate with the international community, and also work towards the restoration of the severed inter-Korean dialogue channels and the resumption of humanitarian cooperation through meticulous preparations. Not from the point of view based on ideology or emotion, but grounded in pragmatism, to enable our people to truly feel peace in their everyday lives, we will strive to bring peace on the Korean Peninsula to pave the way for another great leap forward. Yet, there still remains numerous challenges and tasks. In the face of a harsh international order, to unravel the complex problems before us wisely, we need a sober assessment of the situation at hand and seek solutions that maximize our national interest. And I believe that the wisdom and experience from the distinguished experts who are gathered here today will guide us in exploring new solutions as a starting point of our journey. Through today's discussions, I hope that we can actively shape a favorable international environment and find ways to position ourselves as a central nation in global peace and cooperation, and also emerge as a global economic power. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. He recommitted himself to the peace on the Korean Peninsula. Please give Vice Minister Kim with a big round of applause once again. Next, we're going to invite Mr. Kim Byung-gi, Acting President and Floor Leader of the Democratic Party, for his congratulatory remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to meet all of you. I would like to express my congratulations on the hosting of the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. I'd like to thank President and CEO Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency and the staff for their work. I would also like to express my gratitude to the co-organizers, including the Ministry of Unification, Institute for National Security Strategy, and the Yonhap News Northeast Asia Center. Trump 2.0 has begun, and since then, many changes have been taking place around the world. With all these tariff policies of the US, China, Canada, Mexico, and the EU are being significantly affected by these tariff announcements. And with active engagement in armed conflicts, they are leading many changes in the security landscape. The geopolitical tensions and the reorganization of global supply chains are posing major threats to Korea. Against this backdrop, I'd like to remind you that Korea has always been able to turn crises into opportunities. President Lee attended the G7 summit to resume our diplomacy at the summit level. And at the same time, there are growing expectations for the Korean economy. The Kospi index reached 3,000 level in 3.5 years, and the consumer confidence has reached its peak. So there are these positive expectations about the Korean economy, and we need to work hard to make sure that these expectations are translated into reality. The Democratic Party will work closely with President Lee and his administration to make sure that we create a better Korea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Acting President Kim Byung-gi of the Democratic Party. As a floor leader and the acting president of the ruling party, we really look forward to your great contributions. Next, we're going to invite Song Eun-seok, floor leader of the People Power Party. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Good afternoon. I am Song Eun-seok, floor leader of the People Power Party. I sincerely congratulate you on the hosting of the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. This meaningful event today has been organized thanks to President Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency, Vice Minister Kim Nam-jung of Unification and the Institute for National Security Strategy, and the Yonhap News Agency Northeast Asia Center. I extend my deep gratitude to you for all your efforts. The current time we live in is marked by rapid changes in politics, economy, and security, an era of great turbulence. Since the launch of Trump 2.0, the U.S. trade stance has become even more hardline, and with the imposition of broad-based reciprocal tariffs, one of our key industries, which is semiconductors, is also witnessing growing concerns over tariffs in earnest as well. Such trade pressure is becoming a significant burden on our businesses and industries across the board. Geopolitical risks are also growing by the day. The war between Russia and Ukraine is dragging on, and military cooperation between the DPRK and Russia has emerged as a new variable that seriously threatens security on the Korean Peninsula. As for Israel and Iran, although they have recently reached a ceasefire agreement, the Middle East situation still remains unpredictable and unstable. International oil prices, exchange rates, supply chains, and various aspects of our economy are also affected by the resulting ramifications, thus warranting sustained and meticulous management. At times like this, the diplomatic trust assets that we have built up over the years must be leveraged in a strategic manner. Our strong ROK-US alliance, and also close dialogue channels with the U.S. administration and the UN, G7, NATO, and other institutions and countries that share global values in solidarity, the ties with which are invaluable assets to us. President Trump is a pragmatic and skilled transactional leader. Now is the time for Korea to clearly demonstrate that we are a reliable and capable partner. Based on this, we must work on comprehensive tariff negotiations with the U.S., strengthening security cooperation for stability on the Korean Peninsula, and promoting cooperation in advanced future industries by devising specific and multifaceted response strategies. Indeed, just last year, President Trump commented that America's shipbuilding industry needs South Korea's help and cooperation, directly requesting cooperation in the shipbuilding sector. This indicates that our key industries can actually become practical levers for diplomacy. We must actively utilize this to safeguard Korea's strategic interests by all means. I hope today's gathering will help guide us in identifying concrete solutions to turn this time of crisis into opportunity. My party, the People Power Party, and I will also listen attentively to your insights and to help ensure that the Republic of Korea continue to navigate through global uncertainties and move forward unfaltered. We will work towards diplomatic, security, and trade policies that align with our national interest with active support. Once again, I sincerely congratulate you on the opening of the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025, and I wish everyone health and happiness. Thank you very much. And of course, at a time when geopolitical risks are rising with tariff pressure, various countermeasures must be sought. So let's give Mr. Song once again a big round of applause. Now we're going to invite Mayor Oh Se-hoon of the Seoul Metropolitan Government for his congratulatory speech. Please welcome the mayor with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Oh Se-hoon, Mayor of the Seoul Metropolitan Government. I would like to sincerely congratulate you on the hosting of the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025 to explore the way forward for the new government of Korea amid the uncertainties surrounding the intensifying competition between the U.S. and China and the tariff war from the U.S. I would like to express my gratitude to Hwang Dae-il, President, CEO of Yonhap News Agency, and staff members for providing this meaningful forum. I would also like to welcome all the speakers and global scholars and leaders speakers who are going to share their insights. In particular, I would like to take this opportunity to express my special gratitude to many journalists, including Im Ju-young, in charge of social affairs, Lee Young-jae, Kim Gi-hoon, Yoon Bo-ram, and Jung Soo-yeon, and other members of the press from Yonhap News Agency for reporting various policies of Seoul and delivering them quickly and accurately. Your reporting is playing a key role in increasing the transparency in the Seoul metropolitan government affairs. We are now facing significant uncertainty in the structural restructuring of the international order. Since the inauguration of Trump's second term, issues such as increased defense cost sharing and the strategic role realignment are becoming inevitable. In addition, the recent 12-day war in the Middle East has shown that the traditional and conventional security concepts are no longer valid. There was no sign of escalation before the conflict unfolding, and missiles and drones and cyber attacks were used simultaneously during this war, and in the response process, public information and AI analysis capabilities determined the outcome of the war and the course of diplomacy. Furthermore, North Korea is recently talking about the possibility of using nuclear weapons preemptively and has unveiled strategic weapons such as SLBMs. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 security principles to respond to changes in the security environment and in responding to the new international order. First of all, we need to enhance our ROK-US alliance so that we can design strategies together. The first alliance version was about U.S. providing security for the Korean Peninsula, but the Alliance 2.0 should evolve into a partnership of shared responsibility and contribution from cyberspace to supply chains and strategic technologies. The alliance's reach has expanded beyond the military sphere. Now we need a new level of strengthened alliance structure premised on joint design and joint operations and joint responses. In order for that phrase, going together or 같이 간다, to become a reality, a system of shared responsibility must first be established. Second, we need realistic self-development. North Korea has enshrined nuclear weapons in its constitution and has openly mentioned its preemptive use. Our strategy cannot solely rely on moral goodwill or diplomatic optimism. It's time to discuss some of the practical options, including securing the capabilities necessary for nuclear deterrence and considering potential nuclear capabilities like the level of Japan. Only the strong can speak peace. Second, we need an integrated system that can respond to complex threats. Today's threats are deployed simultaneously with drones, EMPs, cyber attacks, and information manipulation all taking place at the same time. The establishment of an integrated defense system that can allow the military, the government, and civilians to share information in real time and analyze, judge, and respond to threats has become a necessity. Against this backdrop, the Seoul metropolitan government has accumulated an action-oriented strategy to respond to these complex security threats. Seoul has been hosting a security forum to discuss and implement measures such as nuclear and missile protection, preparation for EMP attacks, and establishment of an integrated anti-drone system. In addition, we improved the manual for strengthening the integrated defense capabilities of local governments and enhanced protection capabilities. In September this year, we will hold the 5th Seoul Security Forum to further deepen discussions on strengthening security capabilities. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, national security is a responsibility of the state to the people. We need to be faster, more precise, and more proactive in preparing for potential threats. Change may come without warning, but we must prepare ourselves to respond to it. I believe that this symposium will provide insight for Korea's security strategy and serve as an opportunity to make peace on the Korean Peninsula, not just a declaration, but a substantive structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Oh Se-hoon. Thank you very much for your message. Big round of applause is in order. So 3 principles for security on the Korean Peninsula gave us a lot of insight. Next, His Excellency Ambassador of Japan to Korea, Mitsushima Goichi, will deliver his congratulatory remarks. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Mitsushima Koichi, Ambassador of Japan to the Republic of Korea. Let me first express my heartfelt congratulations to Yonhap News, Ministry of Unification, INSS, and the Yonhap News Northeast Asia Center for hosting this symposium very timely manner. And I also would like to express my gratitude for having me at today's symposium. In fact, I had the honor to make congratulatory remarks last year as well. Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the uncertain situation in the Middle East and North Korea, those challenges that I referred to in that remarks last year are still unresolved and are becoming even more complicated. In the current strategic environment, Japan and ROK are important neighboring countries that should cooperate with each other as partners in tackling various international issues. The importance of Japan-ROK relations is now in the situation where there is no turning back. Close communication and expanding cooperation between the two countries is not a choice, but a necessity for realizing the national interests of both countries. This year, this has not changed after the inauguration of President Lee Jae-myung on the 4th of this month. The President held his first telephone talk with our Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru on June 9th, following the telephone talk with the US President Donald Trump. Shortly after the telephone talk, Japan-ROK Summit was held face-to-face at the margin of G7 Kananaskis Summit in Canada last week. I was informed that the summit meeting went very successfully. At the meeting, two leaders concurred on promoting close communication between the two governments, including through the two leaders' shuttle diplomacy for stable development of the Japan-ROK relations under their leadership. Among the regional issues they discussed, they reaffirmed that they will continue to work closely together between Japan and Korea, as well as among Japan, Korea, and the United States on the policies toward North Korea, including on the nuclear and the missile issues, as well as the abductions issues. Also last week, with such leadership of the two leaders, Japan and the ROK, respectively, in Seoul and Tokyo, held the reception to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between two countries. Both of them were very successful, with approximately 1,000 attendees each. Taking this opportunity, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to those who came and celebrated the anniversary together with us. This shows how many people believe that positive Japan-ROK relations is important and that strengthening the future-oriented cooperation are beneficial to both sides. In closing, as Japanese ambassador to the ROK, while I will continue to work hard for the bilateral of our relations, betterment of our relations, I would like to ask all of us who are involved in Japan-ROK relations to have the vision of turning challenges into opportunities, just like theme of the session 2 of today's symposium. We also need to have the mindset of how to effectively strengthen Japan-ROK relations and the Japan-ROK-US cooperative relations in the current strategic environment in order to ensure peace and stability in this region. In doing so, I would like to add the importance to work closely with the like-minded countries of the other regions and to strengthen our cooperation with the so-called global South countries in order to ensure rule-based, stable international environment. Your continued support is essential and very much appreciated. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
네, 대사님의
Thank you very much. As Ambassador pointed out, at the G7 summit, there was a bilateral summit talk between the two countries, and we hope that our relations will advance further. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your insightful words. Last but not least, we're going to invite Chairman Choi Tae-won of the Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He will deliver his video congratulatory message, and please look at the screen on the center stage. Big round of applause is in order.
Good afternoon. I am Choi Tae-won, Chairman of the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry. First of all, I would like to sincerely congratulate you on the 11th Yonhap News Korean Peninsula Symposium. I would like to thank CEO Hwang Dae-il and the staff members for their meaningful occasion. For the past 10 years, the Korean Peninsula Symposium has offered a comprehensive analysis of the current geopolitical situation on the Korean Peninsula and proposed optimal solutions for peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and in the region. Under the theme of new administration's strategic response to seismic shift in the international order during Trump's second term, this year's event is also going to provide valuable insights like a ray of light in a thick cloud. A new government was inaugurated in Korea on June 4th, and President Lee quickly returned to the stage of normal diplomacy, attending the G7 summit 10 days after his inauguration. At a time when the Korean Peninsula is standing on a new starting line, this event is even more meaningful. The uncertainties in dealing with the trade order due to the political leadership vacuum have subsided. But the triangular waves surrounding us still remain. Responding to U.S. tariffs is still a challenge. The competition between the U.S. and China will become an irreversible order for decades. From the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war to the conflicts in the Middle East, there are even voices of concern that the era of peace is over. In times like this, the government and the private sector need to work together. The private sector should contribute to the government's efforts to strengthen the ROK-US economic and security partnership and trade cooperation. Companies should also seek to strengthen cooperation with the U.S. in key strategic industries such as semiconductors, AI, shipbuilding, energy, and mobility. The public and the private sectors should work together to reduce uncertainty in the trade order and create a new growth model that will open up future prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. The Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry will do its best to serve as a strong bridge for private-public cooperation. I would like to ask for your continued interest and support to Yonhap News Agency, Korea's leading news agency. Thank you.
Chairman Choi expressed his hope that this event would become a ray of light through the thick clouds. Please join me once again in giving a big round of applause to Mr. Choi Tae-won, Chairman of KCCI. So we've just heard opening remarks and congratulatory remarks, and due to time constraints, we will not be able to hear from all of the distinguished guests, and your kind understanding is appreciated. With that, we conclude the opening ceremony of the Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. We sincerely thank all the distinguished guests here Today, as well as those attending online, we'll be taking a short break, and then we'll proceed with the keynote speech by Mr. Cho Jung-sik, Chairman of the Democratic Party's Advisory Council on Foreign Affairs, Security, and Unification, followed by video messages from U.S. Senator Andy Kim and U.S. Representative Yeon Kim. Then we will move into the main presentations and discussions divided into Session 1 and Session 2. Thank you very much.
네, 그럼
Dear participants and ladies and gentlemen, we would now like to have the keynote presentation session. So please take your seats. Our keynote speaker is lawmaker Cho Jung-sik, Chair of the Foreign Affairs, Security and Unification Advisory Council of the Democratic Party. Please welcome the keynote speaker with a big round of applause.
네,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Cho Jung-sik, Chair of the Democratic Party's Foreign Affairs, Security and Unification Advisory Council. It is very meaningful to deliver this keynote speech at the 11th Yonhap News Agency Korean Peninsula Symposium 2025. The theme is the new administration's strategic response to seismic shift in the international order during the second term of Trump. This is a very timely and appropriate topic. It's very meaningful that we are discussing this topic with domestic and foreign experts. I would like to express my gratitude to President and CEO Hwang Dae-il of Yonhap News Agency, as well as the Ministry of Unification, the Institute for National Security Strategy, and the Yonhap News Northeast Asia Center for preparing for this event. As you're well aware, we're now facing an era of seismic change in the international order. Due to the strategic competition between the US and China, geopolitical conflicts, the reorganization of the global economy, and the climate crisis, the existing order is being shaken and complex crises are becoming commonplace. And strategic uncertainty has become a constant in international politics. And this global crisis is no longer a matter of other neighboring countries, but it is a reality directly related to our own survival. In this new era of upheaval, the Republic of Korea overcame the crisis of democracy together with the people, and the people gave birth to a new government that can respond to the demands of the times. The inauguration of the Lee Jae-myung government is more than just a change of government. It means the restoration of democracy and the return to a responsible global member of the community. On June 16th, President Lee Jae-myung attended the G7 summit just 12 days after taking office, and President Lee declared to the international community the return of Korean diplomacy. The international status of the Republic of Korea, which had been tarnished and diplomatically marginalized, was restored at once, and we were able to show to the world that Korea is a powerful model country with democratic resilience. This is the government's firm will to pursue pragmatic diplomacy centered on national interests. And it is also a declaration that Korea is not just a passive recipient of the international order, but it will take the lead in reshaping and coordinating the international order going forward. Since the inauguration of Trump's second term, under the slogan of America First, the U.S. is pursuing a comprehensive readjustment of foreign policies and security policies. Demands for allies, such as increasing defense spending, restructuring of trade norms, and strengthening protectionism centered on strategic industries, are increasing. And as a result, uncertainty about global supply chains and the overall economic order is expanding. While we don't know when the Russia-Ukraine war will come to an end, the Israeli-Hamas war has spread to a conflict with Iran, and the international order is in a whirlwind of strategic tension and restructuring. The U.S.-China strategic competition goes beyond military and diplomacy. It is expanding to all other areas such as economy, technology, energy, and supply chains. The U.S. is asking allies to take a position in various ways, such as reorganizing supply chains, regulating technology, and sharing defense costs. In response, China is strengthening its solidarity with the Global South through bilateral and multilateral strategies. This year commemorates the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and of the founding of the United Nations. But we are far from a permanent settlement of peace. But in the shaking of the existing liberal global order, we are faced with multi-layered and multifaceted challenges. The basic premise of international politics was cooperation, but now it has become an era in which each country must find a way to survive on its own. Therefore, Korea's diplomacy also has to put our national interests first and develop strategies and capabilities to respond flexibly to the situations that are evolving rapidly. We're standing at a critical juncture. We must overcome the dichotomy. Today's international security environment cannot be approached by the dichotomy of alliance or independence. The strategic competition between the US and China, the threat from North Korea, and the reorganization of global supply chains cannot be approached with any biased diplomatic line. But rather, the argument between the independence approach and the alliance approach is quite meaningless, and what is needed now more than ever is a sophisticated diplomatic strategy centered on national interests. At the center of this is pragmatic diplomacy. Pragmatic diplomacy is a realistic solution amid a complex terrain of diplomacy and security to make decisions based on national interests. The Lee Jae-myung government is not bound by ideology or factional logic, but will pursue a diplomatic and security line centered on national interests. The ROK-US alliance and ROK-US-Japan cooperation are our strategic foundation and key pillars of regional security. And at the same time, we must carry out economic cooperation with China and Russia, of course, after the signing of a peace treaty, and multilateral cooperation with the Global South in parallel. While making alliances the backbone of diplomacy, we need to focus on national interests to promote pragmatic cooperation and strategic solidarity in harmony. In the era of complex security, economy and technology are also part of security. Today, the concept of security is much broader than in the past. It is an era where guns and tanks alone cannot protect the country. Semiconductors, AI, battery, biotechnology, space technology, and quantum and stable global supply chains are now as important as the traditional military power and assets. They have become key security assets that directly related to the survival of the country. Due to the recent instability in the Middle East, international oil prices have fluctuated and the possibility of disruption of maritime logistics is increasing. So our economy and industry are being affected significantly. Now, these issues should not just be treated as simple economic phenomena, but as core issues in our diplomatic and security strategy. Economic security is a national survival strategy. The core strategic industries of semiconductors, AI, battery, and biotechnology are not just the industrial base, but have become diplomatic assets that help protect national interests in the international arena. And countries that gain leadership in this area will take the lead in the process of restructuring the international order.
However, Korea's external environment is not favorable. The United States is seeking to enhance technological security and stabilize the supply chains by expanding cooperation with its allies, while regarding strategic industry cooperation involving China, it is imposing export controls, investment restrictions, and other strict measures. President Trump is conducting a wide range of tariff negotiations with countries around the world, and to its allies, the president is demanding increases in defense spending and cost sharing for defense, calling for industry, trade, and security realignment across the board. This situation is undoubtedly a crisis on one hand, but at the same time, it could also be an opportunity for a new leap forward for the Republic of Korea. In semiconductors, AI, batteries, biotech, and other advanced industries, if we are able to secure technological super gap and build on this basis to emerge as a central country in global supply chain cooperation, Korea will be able to establish itself in the international community as a key partner for strategic cooperation. Technological leadership will translate into diplomatic power, and industrial competitiveness will lay the foundation for security capabilities. The Lee Jae-myung administration, based on this awareness, will push forward with bold national investment, regulatory innovation, talent development, and global supply chain cooperation as part of a multi-pronged response strategy simultaneously to navigate this era of upheaval in the international order. As multipolarization accelerates in the international order, the Lee administration will also step up its cooperation with the Global South and emerging nations. On the occasion of the G7 summit, President Lee held bilateral talks with India, Mexico, South Africa, and Brazil to discuss trade, energy, and technology-related practical cooperation measures in great depth. This reflects the pursuit of shared universal values alongside pragmatic interests guided by the direction of the Lee administration's foreign policy. It also marks a tangible outcome of Korea's diversification of global diplomacy. This strategy of diversified diplomacy is a step toward responding to the current poly crisis, an effort to flexibly respond through a global cooperation network. The Lee Jae-myung administration will seek both trust and practical gains through pragmatic diplomacy and at the same time harmonize global solidarity and national interest. Lastly, inter-Korean relations characterized by entrenched severance and hostile tensions demand a more sophisticated and sustained approach. The previous administration neglected diplomatic efforts and excessively focused on military deterrence, thus resulting in significant escalation in military tensions on the Korean Peninsula. The DPRK's nuclear and missile capabilities have advanced further, and the strategic closeness between the DPRK and Russia has become a new variable in shaping regional security. Inter-Korean communication channels have been completely cut off, and concerns over potential military clashes are rising as well. Now it is time to break this vicious cycle of confrontation and once again pursue a path of peace over armed conflict. In such grave a situation, the newly launched Lee Jae-myung administration bears a heavy responsibility to open a new era of peace on the Korean Peninsula. The new government will work to restore severed inter-Korean relations and re-establish the path toward peace on the Korean Peninsula. On June 15th, President Lee, in commemoration of the 25th anniversary of the June 15 Inter-Korean Joint Declaration, declared his initiative to transform the Korean Peninsula risk into a Korean Peninsula premium, underscoring the need for inter-Korean dialogue and cooperation. Pragmatic diplomacy of the new government will also be applied consistently to its North Korea policy. The realities between South and North Korea will be recognized as society, yet solutions for mutual benefit and peaceful coexistence will be actively explored. Based on a solid ROK-US alliance, extended deterrence will be strengthened to secure military deterrence power, while inter-Korean de-escalation and resumption of dialogue will be pursued through multifaceted diplomatic efforts at the same time. This vision for peace will not remain a mere rhetoric. Immediately following its inauguration, the Lee administration suspended anti-North Korea leaflet launches and loudspeaker broadcasts. This marks a starting point of restoring trust between the two Koreas and creating an enabling environment for dialogue through demonstrating its strong commitment to action. Diplomacy is never a tool for confrontation, but another means to solidifying security and peace. What we need right now is not a show of force or confrontation, but an approach, a strategic approach that ensures security while designing peace. The most certain form of security is peace that renders conflict unnecessary. The Lee Jae-myung administration, together with the international community, will walk that path steadily. Distinguished guests, as I stated earlier, we're now standing at a major turning point amid upheaval in the global order. In such times of turbulence, crises and opportunities coexist, and more than ever, we need a precise and elaborate diplomatic strategy that protects our national interest. The Lee Jae-myung administration, through national interest-centered pragmatic diplomacy, will redesign Korea's foreign and security strategy. As we are joined today by experts from various fields, their wisdom and solidarity will help pave the way for pragmatic diplomacy as a valuable asset that reinforces such path. The Lee Jae-myung administration, together with the Korean people, and jointly with all of you here today, will work to establish Korea's stature befitting the new international order. Through pragmatic diplomacy aligned with national interest, we will widely open the future for the Republic of Korea. Thank you.
Thank you very much, lawmaker Cho Jang-sik, for delivering a keynote speech filled with insight amid the turbulent global landscape. Once again, another big round of applause. Thank you very much, lawmaker Cho, for your insightful speech. Next, I would like to invite U.S. Senator Andy Kim, the first Korean-American senator of the U.S. who is representing the state of New Jersey. His video message is here. Please give a big round of applause.
Senator Andy Kim, and I want to say thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to once again address the Yonhap Symposium. I'm excited to be here for your 11th and be able to say a few words. Right now, this is such an important moment for U.S.-South Korea relations. Both of our nations have undergone a political transition, and it's critically important now more than ever that we ensure that this strategic alliance is strong, in part because of the challenges in the world around us. You know, we see greater threats, greater challenges that are out there. The Ukraine war has made so many things different in terms of the actions and the capacity of North Korea, as we see them now emboldened based off of Russia's partnership with them. Current challenges that we face when it comes to China continues to threaten and challenge us in many different ways, economically as well as militarily. And so many other difficulties that are out there. It's strong. So now is a time more than ever that we need the leadership in the United States and South Korea to recommit themselves to a strategic alliance and partnership that will be an anchor to the Indo-Pacific region and showcase what it is that we can accomplish if we work together. And I hope that this is something that we can accomplish. I congratulate President Lee in terms of his win and wish him the best in terms of establishing a government in South Korea that can meet this moment. There are no doubt challenges that he'll face. A lot of continued political turmoil that I hope that we are able to see unified. But a lot of economic challenges as well that people face in South Korea, as we do in the United States and around the world. We see a lot of challenge right now with concern about what happens next economically. And I think that this is a place for a real win-win between the United States and South Korea, where we can think through what types of ways we can take this partnership to the next level. And I have to say, I disagree significantly with how President Trump has engaged, not just in terms of South Korea, but more broadly around the world, pushing the United States towards a more transactional foreign policy, raising up these tariffs upon partners, including South Korea, making it difficult and adding friction to our relations in a way that I find detrimental to the partnerships that are necessary right now for us to be able to stand up against the competitors and adversaries that we face. So I'm hopeful that we can find a way forward, that we can find a deal that can drop these tariffs back down, to be able to create a new foundation for an economic partnership that is based around technology and innovation, the things that we can do together on artificial intelligence, on microchips, on other types of technologies that both the United States and South Korea excel at, but they also complement each other. And that is something now more than ever we need to see rise up. So I will continue to do everything that I can in the United States Senate. I'm proud that I was able to be sworn in a couple months ago as the very first Korean American U.S. Senator in the history of America. And I want to use that platform as a place to be a bridge between the United States and South Korea, to try to strengthen and forge stronger bonds between these two nations. And also to be able to lift up the voice and get the Korean American community and the Asian American community more engaged, more broadly finding their voice when it comes to politics in the United States. And hopefully that can raise up the prioritization that is critical on so many fronts, whether that's about the US and South Korea, whether that's about our continued effort to try to work with South Korea and Japan for the trilateral, where we are continuing to make sure we see that the challenges that we face are better addressed if we work together in a multilateral way. Try to set an example for the rest of the Indo-Pacific to stand up and work together as well with a level of cooperation that can meet the moment right now when we face so many real challenges that are out there. So no doubt there will be difficulties ahead and there will be challenges that we encounter, but I hope that we can do so in a way where we come out stronger. I will do everything I can in the United States side to be able to try to forge that kind of relationship and to be able to tackle the problems ahead. So thank you so much again for letting me say a few words. Much more work to do, but I look forward to rolling up my sleeves and doing everything we can for the U.S.-South Korea partnership. Take care.
네, 앤디 김 의원님의
Thank you very much, Senator Kim, for his video message. Next, we will watch a video message from U.S. Representative Young Kim on the topic of future cooperation between the two countries and the meaning of a legislation called the Partner with Korea Act. Please watch.
Hello, I'm Congresswoman Young Kim, and I represent California's 40th Congressional District. And I currently serve as chairwoman of the East Asia and the Pacific Subcommittee of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I want to congratulate Yonhap News Agency for hosting the 11th annual Yonhap News Symposium. As a Korean American member of Congress, I am proud to see how within my lifetime, South Korea has transitioned from a recipient of foreign aid to the fastest growing foreign aid donor and one of America's closest economic and security allies. To start with our vital economic partnership, our bilateral trade has supported millions of jobs, with Korean investments in California alone creating thousands of opportunities. From semiconductors to electric vehicles, Korean companies are at the forefront of innovation and essential to U.S. supply chains. We know that the KORUS FTA marked the gold standard for trade agreements globally. At the same time, there is more work to be done. That is why, in my time here in Congress, I have advocated for an upgrade to our economic partnership. One way to do that is through the Partner with Korea Act that I am proud to champion. Advancing this bill into law would create 15,000 highly skilled E4 category of work visas for Korean nationals with specialized expertise. This would be an investment in our two countries' trade relationship and economic prosperity. I believe it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the jobs, investment, and economic opportunity that South Korean companies have brought to American communities. The U.S. Republic of Korea alliance is 72 years strong this year, and more important than ever. We are living in unprecedented times with North Korea, China, and Russia's unholy alliance threatening a democratic, free, and open Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific is the priority theater, according to the United States Department of Defense, and I absolutely agree. The region's economic, geographical, and military significance makes it an essential arena. Our adversaries are growing bolder and brazen by the day. North Korea has been deepening military ties with Russia and Xi Jinping has supported Russia's unprovoked and brutal war against Ukraine and is ramping up military exercises around Taiwan. Now is not the time to pursue a policy of appeasement with our adversaries. We know that this approach has failed with North Korea. But the time is ripe to promote peace through strength. We must leverage our bilateral and multilateral partnerships in the Indo-Pacific region to advocate and advance our security, economic, and people-to-people ties. In the past few years, we have made historic progress in the United States, Republic of Korea, and Japan trilateral partnership, and we must ensure the partnership only strengthens across administrations. So looking ahead, I believe the opportunities for collaboration are ripe, especially in sectors like defense production, shipbuilding, AI, clean energy, global health, and advanced manufacturing. As chairwoman of the East Asia and the Pacific Subcommittee, I look forward to engaging with the new South Korean administration and working to advance our shared prosperity in the United States and Republic of Korea alliance. Thank you very much.
네, 여러분 큰
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We have these Congress members of the U.S. who are Korean American, and we heard important messages on how we can promote cooperation between Korea and the U.S. Thank you very much. Let's move on to session 1. For this session, we are going to rearrange the stage a little bit, so please remain in your seat, and thank you for your patience. While we rearrange the stage, I'd like to make some introduction. In the first session, Han Seok-ki, president of the Institute for National Security Strategy, will serve as a moderator. And for panel members, we have Kim Hyun-wook, president of Sejong Institute, Zach Cooper, senior fellow at American Enterprise Institute, and Tokuchi Hideshi, president of Research Institute for Peace and Security, and former vice minister of international affairs at Japan's Ministry of Defense, as well as Ryu Yong-wook, professor of international politics at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy and National University of Singapore. Moderator Han Seok-ki served in important positions within the Korean government, and he served as the dean of Yonsei Graduate School of International Studies, and he's currently president of Institute for National Security Strategy. Now moving on to session number 2, I'd like to briefly introduce who will participate in session 2. The moderator for session 2 is Mr. Yoon Young-kwan, chairman of the ASEAN Institute for Policy Studies and former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And as for panel members, we have An Ho-young, a chair professor of the Institute for Far Eastern Studies at Gyeongnam University, former ambassador to the U.S., and Mr. Im Sung-nam, advisor of at law firm Bae Kim and Lee, and former Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Professor Yu Young-yi, a visiting professor of Seoul National University's Graduate School of International Studies and former Trade Minister, as well as Lee Si-wook, president of Korea Institute for International Economic Policy. And our moderator has served in important positions within the government, including former Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and also the chair of the East Asia Vision Group. Now, we will soon have session number 1 and session number 2 in succession, and we look forward to in-depth discussions during these 2 sessions. Now, I'd like to invite the participants for session number 1. Please welcome them with a big round of applause.
네, 한석희 국가
So we have Mr. Han Seok-ki, president of the Institute for National Security Strategy, Kim Hyun-wook, president of Sejong Institute, Zach Cooper, senior fellow at American Enterprise Institute, Tokuchi Hideshi, president of Research Institute for Peace and Security, Ryu Yong-wook, professor of international politics at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. I will pass over the microphone to President Han.
Gentlemen, my name is Seok Han.
I'm a president of INSS. I'm a chair of session 1 titled New America's Neo-Isolationism and Coming Changes in Trade, Foreign Affairs, and Security. It's been already five months since the inauguration of President Trump. And in the meantime, we have witnessed a series of unprecedented geopolitical and economic instabilities. The war in Ukraine shows no signs of ending. The US-China tariff conflict continues to intensify. And most recently, the Israel-Iran confrontation has escalated dramatically. Many observers see this period as the onset of an era of geopolitical and economic instability. So, with this kind of backdrop, in this session, we'll discuss how to deal with these global difficulties, more specifically, how to manage geopolitical and geoeconomic challenges in East Asia. For the discussion, we invited 4 panelists, very well-known persons. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Kim Hyun-wook. He's a good friend of mine, and he's currently president of Sejong Institute, and also he's a professor at Korean National Diplomatic Academy, KNDA, and he's a well-known American specialist. Please welcome him with big hands. Second panelist would be Zach Cooper. He's a senior fellow at American Enterprise Institute, AEI. He accumulated a variety of working experience in Washington, D.C. area and clear-minded analyst based in D.C. And personally, whenever I go to Washington, D.C., he's the first person I meet because I got the guideline from him and the atmosphere of the Washington, D.C. he explained to me. And he just published a book, The Tide and Fortune, The Rise and Decline of Great Militaries. This is a very good book. I'm just reading the first part of it. It's very good. So I think in his book, he said that how will the United States and China evolve militarily in the years ahead. That's a very important issue. So please welcome him with big hands. Zach Cooper. Third panelist would be Dokuchi Hideshi. He is president of Research Institute for Peace and Security, RIPS. And he used to be Japan's first ever Vice Minister of Defense for International Affairs in 2014. And he will tell us about the Japan's military and the Japan defense policies vis-a-vis Korea and the East Asia. Welcome him with big hands. Finally, Professor Ryu Ong-wook. He's a professor of international politics at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. He specializes in international relations with the focus of East Asia. I think I have known him several years, but he's a very diverse experience. He had education in New Zealand, Australia, and in the United States, and he just covered many East Asian countries, including Korea, Japan, China, and Southeast Asian countries. So he will deliver, maybe we don't have any Chinese participants, so he will talking on behalf of China today. Please welcome him, big hands. We have a limited time of 70 minutes. So, and I believe the most important role of a chair is time management. So I'd like to give each panelist, actually every panelist, they just provide the talking points. So based on talking points, they are supposed to talking 7 minutes for initial presentation. And then I'd like to go around the second round of questions. I'd like to give you each panelist has questions. And the third round would be, we'd like to wrapping up with the one question about regarding Korea's future diplomacy. So I'd like to maybe, you are preparing right now? So let's go with Professor Kim Hyun-wook first. You have 7 minutes.
Yes. Thank you, President Han, for introducing panelists. I'm very honored to have this chance to talk about Trump 2.0 and South Korea's new government, how South Korea, US can coordinate a lot of difficult issues and agendas in the future. I think several months, about half a year have passed since the inauguration of Trump government. And it seems like three groups or three pathways or branches of policies are undergoing, I think. First one is definitely the Make America Great Again group. The SNS influencer Laura Loomer, we know she's very influential in controlling and influencing President Trump's policies. I think this group is pretty much geared towards a restraining policies of U.S. Foreign policies now, and strong and hawkish immigration policies, and wants Trump government to be very hawkish. So that's first group. We know what she's doing. She has been firing a lot of people within the National Security Council of the United States. Second group, I think, is fiscal people. Very hawkish people like Peter Navarro and Robert Lighthizer, and also someone who is now controlling pretty much about the tariff policies and fiscal policies of Trump government, who is Scott Bessent, have been competing each other. But I think it's getting pretty much focused on Scott Bessent's, policy implementations under the President Trump. I think he's the one who is trying to be rational and trying to look at some movements within the United States about equity markets and bond markets, and not just trying to be hawkish on China, but trying to be balanced between the U.S. domestic economic situations and tariff policies thereof. So I think fiscal hawkishy is pretty much, I guess, fading away a little bit, and fiscal deal maker like Scott Bessent is in power now. Another group, I think, is China prioritizers, like defense people and military people, pretty much focused around the Elbridge Colby, who is well known about the military operational issues rather than a Secretary of Defense. So these groups are pretty much focused on China issues and Taiwan continuous issues, and these groups are controlling the military transformations of U.S. forces abroad, including U.S. forces in Korea. So what happened in the early period of this year is the publication, not publications, but the leaking of interim national defense and strategic guidance of the United States, which have put very clearly that the U.S. security policies and military policies priority is China, Taiwan contingency, and some local or regional threats like Russia, Iran, and North Korea have to be dealt or managed by the allies rather than the U.S. forces. So this strategic objectives and guidance of U.S. military policies, Trump government's military policy directive, will make a lot of important, operational level, changes. What we saw recently is 5%, defense budget per GDP agreed at the, NATO summit meeting. I think that would happen in Korea and in Japan. I'm not sure what percentage concretely will be determined bilaterally, but I think there should be definitely pressures by the United States on allies like Japan and South Korea and even Taiwan to raise its defense budget per GDP. So what kinds of issues and agenda do we have? Some tasks also about the allocate U.S. alliance. First thing is that 2 summits, President Lee Jae-myung and President Trump should meet as early as possible. You know that Laura Loomer, mentioned about, some pro-China government perceptions about the Lee Jae-myung government. I think there is a very big perception gap between U.S. and South Korea. I think early meeting and removing those wrong perceptions and coordinations about important issues is something we have to do. Important thing is harmonizing threat perceptions. The US is looking at China threat, and South Korea wants to look at North Korea still. So there should be a lot of coordinations and harmonizing work about their diverging threat perceptions, and thereof some of the strategic objectives thereof. Another thing I think is maybe we have to think about China. We know that some of the strategic interests or strategic value that South Korea has maintained about our relationship with China has been twofold, I think. First one is that maybe China have to do something to denuclearize North Korea, which I don't think was very fruitful. Second is that China was an important trade partner for South Korea. It gave us a lot of huge important markets, and low labor costs within China gave us good chances to manufacture our goods in China. Yeah. So would all these chances and interests and values that China gave to South Korea still the same as before? I think that's what we have to think about. Last thing is that once we get to dealing and talking and discussing about important issues, it should not be only the MAGA, Make America Great Again. It should also be Make Korea Great Again. So that two countries can continue our productive relationships in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kim. You just keep time, maybe very good. And I'd like to go for Jack Cooper, and you have 37 minutes too.
Great. Thank you, President Han. It's wonderful to be here. It's great to be in Seoul. I have to say it feels a little bit more comfortable this year than most because our politics in Washington look more and more like domestic politics in Korea, which may not be a good thing, but I'm really happy to be here. I want to build on what Professor Kim was just talking about and note two real difficult tensions in the US-Korea relationship. And I want to be clear, I'm a supporter of US-Korea alliance issues, and I think we have to overcome these issues. But first, the US-Korea trade relationship is going to be difficult. And this is true in part because of President Trump's approach on trade issues. He is very confrontational, he is not very predictable, and this is clearly his top priority going forward in the US-Korea relationship. And so unlike the Biden administration, which prioritized the US-Korea security relationship, now we have a Trump administration which is prioritizing the US-Korea trade relationship and tariffs and all of the challenges that come with that. That is a major change in our alliance. And I think it's going to be something that's going to be incredibly difficult over the next 4 years. The other change is really about our security relationship. And the way I would characterize this is that we are at risk of decoupling in terms of security because the Trump administration has concluded that the most important issue that we should focus on is China. And they've also concluded that South Korea is not that relevant to their efforts to balance against China. And I think this explains why when Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went to the Shangri-La dialogue a few weeks ago, he said that there were 3 core allies in Asia. It was Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, not South Korea. And there's this view in Washington, which I think is very dangerous, that in fact South Korea is not relevant to the top US priority in the region, which is China, and that perhaps even the Lee Jae-myung government is misaligned with the US on China issues. And the more that that view gets reinforced, the more it will trigger the Trump administration to withdraw some of the prioritization it puts on Korea and some of the support. So what would that look like in practice? I'm just going to list 5 things and then I'll yield back my time. The first, I'm very concerned about the potential for a troop withdrawal from the Korean Peninsula by the United States. I think this discussion about withdrawing a striker brigade, which would be about 4,500 people, is very serious, and Seoul needs to take it seriously. Second, we've already seen the Trump administration call for European allies to spend 5% of gross domestic product on defense. I think we are seeing that that will be the approach in Asia as well, and that will have big implications for Korea, not just in terms of Korea's domestic spending levels, but the special measures agreement that we're probably going to end up renegotiating in the next few years. Third, strategic flexibility. This is something that the Trump administration cares deeply about. They want to ensure that American forces in Korea can be useful in a China contingency. And this is clearly going to be a stressful set of conversations between Seoul and Washington. Fourth, there will be an expectation from the Trump administration that Korea do more on the China issue. I think that will be true on issues including export controls, including security issues. And the Lee government's going to have to make some difficult choices, I think, about how they approach this. And then fifth and finally, I'm worried that there will be a perception in Korea that the bilateral alliance is just no longer as important as it used to be to the United States. So if you'd asked most American experts on Asia a few years ago who the top US allies were in Asia, the answer would probably come back Japan, Korea, Australia, maybe in that order. It is really dangerous that you now, if you were to ask that question of the Trump administration, I think you might hear Japan, Australia, the Philippines. Somebody might put India, which is not a treaty ally, in that list pretty high up, and then Korea. And that is incredibly risky, I think, and it increases the possibility of decoupling of the alliance. So how can we avoid this? I'll just say 2 thoughts and then hand it back. So first, I think it is incredibly important that we have senior level engagement between the 2 governments. I'm not so convinced that it is effective to have that engagement at the president-to-president level. It may be necessary politically, but my experience watching President Trump is that he seldom makes issues better. He often makes them worse. I think the best leader that we've seen deal with President Trump is probably Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba, and he had a very good first meeting, but it doesn't seem like anything positive really came out of that other than a good first agenda. And so I would actually focus on a very early 2+2 meeting between the foreign and defense ministers of the 2 countries where the work can be done, the hard work. And then last, and then I'll hand it back. So I think when we work on issues together, we have to do it in a bilateral, coordinated way. And this is really a critique about the United States. I think the Trump administration's instinct is to be unilateral, but it would be incredibly dangerous if the Lee administration followed that same instinct as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jack. Next will be President Tokuchi.
Well,
you have 7 minutes.
Yeah, Dr. Han, I prepared a PowerPoint presentation and sent it to the organizer, but can I use that? If it is not usable, then it's okay without, I'll do that without PowerPoint presentations, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'm not eligible to answer this question.
Okay, then I'll do my own presentation without the
yes,
PowerPoint
please.
slides. Okay.
Probably.
Well, okay, all right. 여러분 안녕하십니까? 오늘은
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important symposium on Symposium.
mainly 2 points. First of all, problems of Trump administration from my own personal perspective. And then secondly, I'd like to discuss somewhat about how to deal with the problems from the viewpoint of US allies. Well, actually, the Trump administration is fickle and erratic and unprincipled. It militates against US interests, and there are at least 5 problems. First of all, globalization does have its bright side and dark side, and minimizing the dark side and maximizing the bright side should be the policy, but the Trump administration is doing exactly the opposite. That's a problem. He doesn't believe in, for example, comparative advantage or creative destruction. Secondly, he's damaging American democracy by challenging the principle of separation of powers and the principle of the rule of law. And the concept of the rules-based international order is modeled after the Western style of modern democracy and the Anglo-American legal culture. If the US constitutional system of checks and balance doesn't work and American democracy erodes, it will directly affect the credibility of the rules-based international order. And in this context, Trump's political use of the military causes a problem too. But as time is very much limited, I'd like to skip this part. And thirdly, the Trump administration shows its territorial ambition. And even without denying the possibility of use of force. And in the past, lack of territorial ambition generated trust on the United States for many years, but it is not the case any longer. What Trump says may be just a bluff, but such an intimidating approach is viewed as an act to try to alter the status quo by force and coercion, which is very similar to the approach of China and Russia. And fourth, bullying American allies in Europe weakens trust on American commitment to alliances in general. East Asians feel very uneasy, even though the Americans call the Indo-Pacific the priority region. And finally, decrease of American traction. The United States is not as attractive as before. Then, who are benefiting from this terrible situation? The answer is very, very clear. However, it is very certain about the following 3 points about US approach to East Asia and Indo-Pacific in security terms. First of all, the Indo-Pacific is the priority region for the United States. And second, America first doesn't mean America alone. And third, more burden sharing by US allies. And these 3 points are very clearly stated in the remarks by Defense Secretary Hegseth in the Shangri-La dialogue. Of course, he didn't forget to say in the conference that sometimes with tough love, but love nonetheless. Then, what should we do in order to address this terrible situation? It is well-known fact that Americans often make mistakes, actually terrible mistakes sometimes, but they always come back by correcting themselves. So that's the resilience of the United States. So it is wrong to ignore the American power of course correction. Of course, it's quite debatable right now, but if we were too pessimistic, it would become self-realizing. Therefore, we have to be very careful. So I have 5 points as follows for policy recommendations. First of all, US extended deterrence must be made more credible. Our security couldn't be achieved without US nuclear umbrella, as we neighbor, actually Korea and Japan, neighbor on 3 nuclear weapons countries. And also, US presence in Korea and Japan is a great asset for us and for the entire region. There are no alternatives on these points. And actually, US forces Korea is very, very important because it is the only US military presence in the Asian part of the continent. So without US force presence on Korea, there is no permanent U.S. military presence in the continent. That will create big power vacuum, I think. Secondly, do not abandon the United States, but keep it engaged with the world affairs. So-called minilaterals should be strengthened. We must capitalize on the U.S. commitment to the trilateral partnership of Japan, Korea, U.S., and also the vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific as shown in the joint leaders' declaration made by Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba and Donald Trump in February this year. And third, partnerships of like-minded countries other than the United States must be strengthened. Sense of community, sense of common threat perception, and the habit of cooperation is rapidly growing in this region. So it is high time for the regional countries to work closely. So in that context, Korea-Japan bilateral partnership is very, very important. And fourth, public diplomacy to the American society is more important than ever. The American public takes a positive view of alliances, and the majorities of the Americans continue to recognize the importance of both alliances and superior military power. So it is very important to value such voices in the United States. And finally, allies, of course, including Japan and Korea, must assume greater roles for their own national security and also for regional and international security. It is not for the sake of responding to the tough love of the United States, but for the sake of our own national interest in this dangerous world at this juncture. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You keep the time very sharply. Thank you. And next will be Dr. Yu. You have 7 minutes too.
Okay, I want to begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me to this very important symposium to share my views on how the Chinese government perceives and assesses Trump 2.0. So let's start with the basics. China understands that the US-China bilateral relationship has changed fundamentally in its nature, and the US adopts containment policy towards China. So whether it's a Republican administration or Democratic administration in Washington, D.C., they may differ on the method of containment, but they share the same goal of containing China. And therefore, China expects the same containment policy to continue during Trump 2.0. How does Chinese government perceive Trump 2.0? Here, their perception is heavily influenced by their experience with Trump 1.0. And there are a number of lessons the Chinese government has learned from that previous experience. First, sugarcoating and improving personal ties with Trump and people close to Trump will not necessarily help Chinese cause. So if you remember, during Trump 1.0, Ivanka Trump was invited, right, to Shanghai to open her, I don't know, clothing business, whatever, right, to earn some favors from Trump. That didn't work, right? So Chinese government learned that lesson. They also think that Trump is quite erratic. He can change his words anytime. Therefore, focus on his actions, not words. So whatever Trump says, Chinese government wants to see concrete policies and actual right, offer being made from the United States. At the same time, the Chinese government has learned that it needs to demonstrate retaliatory capability and capacity to show China's resolve and strength. And we've seen this when during Trump 2.0, when tariffs were imposed on Beijing. Beijing retaliated with export controls on raw materials and critical minerals. And lastly, enhance China's partnership with other countries, especially Global South, and seize strategic opportunities when they arise. And this includes US allies. So if you remember, under Xi Jinping's leadership, China has expanded greatly into Global South. So you take BRICS, right? And how should we understand BRICS? Well, that's gathering the representative country from different parts of the non-Western world and forming a group, right? So there's Brazil, there's India, there's Russia. Indonesia decided to join, right? BRICS last year, early this year. Iran, right, Middle Eastern countries are represented in BRICS. That's Chinese way of expanding and setting up its own counter international system. At the same time, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, that has also expanded greatly. And that's focused on that particular part of the world, but it's also bringing anti-US or Western countries together under Chinese leadership. So that has been Chinese strategy. What's going to be the trajectory of US-China relationship during Trump 2.0? I think there will be some similarities and differences. We've already seen some differences. During Trump 1.0, Trump took some time to build up pressure on China, right? So there was, in the initial period, Chinese government was very hopeful that some sort of deal could be struck with Trump. That never happened, right? Pressure continued to build up. During Trump 2.0, Trump came out with very strong pressure in the initial period. And I think this actually reflects the recognition on the part of Trump 2.0 that they don't have enough time, right, to weaken China. So they are putting pressure, right, on China right from the very beginning and see how Chinese government is going to respond. And Trump 2.0 is pretty clear in its demand from China. It wants to address trade imbalances with China. So far, the way Xi Jinping has responded to this is actually in the negative. Right? The Chinese government has continuously invested further in manufacturing capacity. When we hope to see some sort of deal between these two superpowers, what we need to see out of China is China reducing its global manufacturing share and emphasizing domestic consumption so that it can buy more of stuff, not only from the USA, from the rest of the world, including other Asian manufacturing countries. Chinese government is not taking that strategy, and I think there are domestic reasons why that is so. China will continue to adopt tit-for-tat strategy. Here, the purpose is not to escalate conflict with the USA, but to respond proportionally, right, to the measures coming from the USA to show China's strength and resolve. Let me finish up with two factors that we need to pay attention as to understand how this bilateral relationship will develop during Trump 2.0. There are global factors that we need to pay attention. How US negotiates with other countries will significantly affect how USA will approach China. So if its tariff negotiations with Germany, European allies, or Asian partners goes well, then US will be in a position to put pressure on Beijing more strongly. What China will understand from the proxy conflicts that we are having, right, in Ukraine and Iran, that's also going to be important. And they will have a lot of important implications for the way China thinks about, right, approaching China issue. Right? So Xi Jinping has not given up that political goal of unifying Taiwan. What he learns from these two proxy conflicts in Ukraine and Iran will actually have implications for how China approaches Taiwan issue. There's also domestic issues facing Xi Jinping. Here I will just mention two. One is economic situation, right, in China. When pretty much everywhere else is struggling with inflation, China is in deflation, right? And it's really struggling to get out of, right, deflationary situation. Severe unemployment, right? We all know that the Chinese government has stopped producing unemployment figures, right? And those issues hurt Xi Jinping's political standing. And here, I don't want to speculate, but what I want to say is, I think there are signs that suggest that power contest has begun in China. There are people who are willing to challenge Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping does not seem to control the People's Liberation Army, and that is a critical.
Sorry. Toguchi, the three people you just analyzed the current for 6 months of Trump second 2.0, the Washington atmosphere, and what will be the risk and what will be what's going on there. And then Professor Liu, you just analyzed that what will be the future of U.S.-China confrontation, and then you just more focus on China's domestic the situation. Speech President Lee explicitly pledged for dialogue with North Korea. So he said that to open channels for communication with North Korea, alongside reinforcing alliance-based deterrence. President Trump also stated in January 2025 to reach out to Kim Jong-un again. that's highlighting his plan to engage once more with North Korea. So in this context, how do you evaluate Professor Kim? Any possibilities of another engagement in North Korea? How do you expect that? If so, who will lead, in what context, and what would be the core relationship between US and Korea? So, and what would be the North Korea's response? Those kind of things you just briefly summarize within 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Looking at what Trump's doing about the Iran issues and Ukraine issues, I think he's not just trying to make things, concluded in a complete and perfect way. The way he sees fires and he makes things closed up, wars calm down, just all temporary way. He's not really interested in a complete war-ending agreement or something. So I think that will be the way I think he's trying to solve the North Korea issues, I think. And also the situation is different from the Hanoi agreement, Hanoi deal in 2019. At that time, the Trump accosted Kim Jong-un and requested a declaration and dismantlement of Yongbyon and other facilities and nuclear sites. And in response, the U.S. would relieve the sanctions for North Korea. But now things have changed. North Korea is now, I think, fourth de facto nuclear state, I would say. And I can imagine maybe this is not easy if we want to imagine any kinds of denuclearization deal between U.S. and India or U.S. and Pakistan. I think Kim Jong-un would think that way. North Korea is already a nuclear state. That's what Kim Jong-un would think. And why denuclearize North Korea? Kim Jong-un would not easily accept that kinds of proposal by President Trump, even though there are a lot of incentives given to Kim Jong-un. And also, North Korea is now within the block of so-called axis of upheaval. Iran, North Korea, Russia, and China. They are forming another block, and North Korea-China relationship and North Korea-Russia relationship is very solid. It doesn't really need such a necessity to open a dialogue with Trump for a lot of urgent incentives. And also, I think if Kim Jong-un dismantles its nuclear weapons, that's destroying all the security-related policies of Kim Jong-un towards the United States. What North Korea wants, Kim Jong-un wants, is to make the solid second strike nuclear capabilities, in response to any chances or opportunities that the U.S. attacks North Korea with conventional or nuclear weapons. North Korea is not the same as Iran. Iran just have initial facilities of nuclear development, but now North Korea has full-fledged nuclear warheads and missiles with its second and third strike capabilities, which Kim Jong-un thinks is very important for its own security. So I think if there's any possibility for a deal-making between North Korea and the United States, that will not be the North Korea denuclearization. That will not be the arms reduction. Maybe arms control. North Korea and the U.S. will talk and what to do about its level of nuclear weapons, level of long-range missiles, how to manage it, keep it and freeze so that North Korea would not use it anymore. And in response, the U.S. can give something to North Korea. But I don't think denuclearization, even though the policy of denuclearization is maintained by the United States, realistically, they will not be accepted by North Korea.
Thank you. I'd like to ask one question to Dr. Cooper. I know that you are the very informative person in Washington, D.C. So recently, President Lee Jae-myung, he skips NATO meeting, and instead the Lee government signals to arrange a meeting with the President Trump before August 2025. It's not maybe 2 months later. So do you think that's possible? And then if not, then what will be your speculation of the meeting, possible meeting in the future? Because we try to meet both the leaders as soon as possible. That would be beneficial to South Korea. So how do you think about that? And from your views, of the Washington views, what would be the conditions to make it possible if you want to do that? And also, in case they meet, what would be, which issue should be considered the highest priority from Trump's perspective? I think that would be my question. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, President Han. So I think it is possible that there could be a meeting in August, but I think it is unlikely. And part of the reason is that I suspect what Korea would have to do to secure a meeting is probably to make some pretty significant sacrifices on trade issues, which is clearly the thing that President Trump cares most about. And I think this is part of why, actually, it wasn't just President Lee, but also Prime Minister Ishiba and Prime Minister Albanese that decided that they did not want to go to the NATO meeting. I think in part because they realized that this was an opportunity for Trump to put pressure on them, including over defense spending levels, and that was probably risky without a lot of upside. So if South Korea was to secure a meeting with President Trump early on, I think the requirement would probably be that the US make some substantial gains in the negotiations over the next couple of weeks with South Korea. Of course, that would probably mean South Korea agreeing to renegotiate parts of the special measures agreement and pay more support to US forces here. It would probably mean some agreement on tariffs, which would leave a 10% tariff in place, but then provide some lower tariff level for some amount of products, especially autos and semiconductors that come into the United States. This would be, I think, very difficult politically to do in the near term. The two other things that I would say on this question, first, I'll go back to something I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure what the value of the leader-to-leader engagement is if that leader-to-leader engagement is so unpredictable. No one knows what President Trump would do in the public session. It could go okay. It could go very badly. A good example of it going badly was when President Zelensky was in the Oval Office and had a meeting that was, most people thought, pre-planned to go smoothly, and it did not. And so you just don't know what's going to happen. And so I think this is a really risky decision. Now, if a meeting does not happen in August, when's the next opportunity? Well, certainly it would be possible if President Lee were to come to the United Nations General Assembly for him to stop through Washington. I think in some ways that might be the easiest opportunity. Could be a quicker visit without a lot of deliverables. The next option would probably be the APEC summit. And I certainly hope that President Trump will attend the APEC summit. But as all of you, I think, know, President Trump doesn't really enjoy summits very much. They just cut the NATO summit from about 2.5 or 3 days down to a part of 1 day so that Trump would actually show up. And that's a much easier conversation, to be honest, than coming all the way to Korea, which is a long way, and meeting with a much larger group of leaders who Trump doesn't really know that well. So I think, hopefully he will come to APEC. I think it would be seen very negatively if he did not. But I don't have a lot of confidence that he will. In the first term, twice, he came to parts of APEC meetings, but for the most part, he tended to skip a lot of the meetings here in Asia. And then just one final comment. I think there's another risk here, which is that the North Korea policies that Professor Kim was mentioning could end up being disconnected between the two governments. This is a little bit like the Iran situation. I think President Trump watched what Israel was doing, and it seemed very successful, and he wanted to be able to claim some credit for that. If somehow there were productive North-South discussions that were actually leading somewhere, I think President Trump might be pretty interested to get involved in those discussions and claim some credit. Now, President Lee would have to give President Trump all the credit for making all of this possible. Maybe he would do that. But I think the more likely thing is that actually our governments are going to be somewhat disconnected on engagement with Pyongyang and may do it unilaterally. And I think that's another risk over the next couple of months that we need to watch out for.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. And Dr. Dokuchi-san, I think you had been the Vice Minister of Japan's Ministry of Defense. And I'm sure that you are the right person to answer my question. In March 2025, Japan Defense Minister Gen Nakatani proposed the concept of one theater to U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So many people, they are interested in what is a one theater concept. So could you elaborate on the strategic significance of this concept? And following this one, what kind of changes in U.S. military in Korea, U.S. military in Japan, and in those kind of the drills and changes, what kind of speculation do you do?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the very interesting and important question, Dr. Han. Well, I read in March or April some of the Japanese newspaper reports on that subject. But as far as I know, such an idea was informally floating in some of the, in the minds of some of the Japanese policymakers in the past, but it is not the case anymore. Instead, the Japanese Ministry of Defense launched OCEAN, O-C-E-A-N, one effort, one cooperative effort among nations instead. And as far as I know, it is not a war-fighting concept. Rather, it's about international security cooperation among like-minded countries. As I said in my own presentations, a sense of community, a sense of cooperation, habit of cooperation, and shared threat perception are growing in this region. I think that's the background of the rise of this concept. And Japanese Defense Minister Gen Nakatani explained somewhat about the new concept of one ocean in his remarks at the Shangri-La Dialogue. And according to him, there are 5 points as the backdrops of this concept. First one is that regional frameworks are being revitalized. And the second one is that the Japan-US alliance remains a cornerstone for the peace and stability and prosperity of the entire region. And third one is that countries with shared values and interests are deepening their own cooperation. And fourth, growing awareness of dangers of excessive dependence on countries which do not share values and interests. And finally, international cooperation is growing. So, this is, in my own impression, this is a concept about how to deepen regional security cooperation. And, in the past, when I visited this country, many experts didn't like the word Indo-Pacific, they were very much reluctant to use the word Indo-Pacific, but now it is more popular than ever before, even in this country. So, the vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific, or FOIP, is widely shared among this region. And, Quad and Squad, and of course, Japan, US, Australia, or Japan, US, South Korea, these unilateral or trilateral partnerships are growing. So, the new concept of, one ocean is based on this concept. And of course, it doesn't exclude the United States. I think that it will lay foundation for future US leaders to come back to us. And as far as the Japan-US alliance relationship is concerned, it is growing in accordance with the line set by the former administration. For example, the US Forces Japan, headquarters of the US Forces Japan was just diplomatic representative of US military in Japan. It was not an operational command, but now it is reinstituted and it is upgraded to operational command, even under the Trump administration. The Trump administration and Mr. Hegseth are very much committed to that effort. So I think that the security cooperation among us, including the Japan-US security cooperation, are in progress in this direction.
Thank you, Tokuji-san. And finally, I'd like to ask one question to Professor Liu. As a well-known China specialist based in Singapore, you are well positioned to access regional perceptions of the ongoing US-China rivalry. Recently, many newspapers, they just informed that China's situation is pretty bad economically and politically. Some other people says that China is well doing. So in your perspective, do you think China can withstand the intensifying US strategic pressure? And how do you interpret the trajectory of this confrontation? And if I add one more question, this is more sensitive, but what do you think the end game of current US-China confrontation?
Okay, I know you like me a lot, so you ask me a lot more questions. I'm happy to answer all of them. Okay, so I know a lot of people pay attention to who's going to prevail, right, in this great power strategic game. Without giving my own perspective on this question, let me just give you the things that we should all focus on. First, you should pay attention to who's gaining in advanced technologies, right? Because this is critical, not only for military technologies, right, advancement, but also to make our knowledge-based, information-based economy more efficient. So pay attention to who's going to control advanced technologies, who's going to strengthen, right, supply chains. And we need to produce this stuff, and that means you need to establish steady, robust, right, supply chains around the world. Who has more stable domestic social political, right, stability and resilience? Because this pressure is mounting on both sides, right? So both sides are trying to hurt the other, and who can withstand that pressure domestically? That's also an important issue to pay attention to. Which side has capable friends, right? So here, if you look, the countries that are on the side of the United States tend to control international finance and international technologies, right? Countries that are close to China, except China, no one has capabilities when it comes to advanced technologies. They do have some standing and control over critical minerals and raw materials, and that's where pressure is coming from China towards the United States. So pay attention to these things. Now, it's hard to figure out which one actually has a greater strength over the other. That's why countries fight proxy wars. And we need to milk as much information from these proxy conflicts in order to figure out which side is going to be stronger. Here, I will share my views on the two proxy conflicts that we've seen in recent time. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, that's a major anti-US power, supposedly second most powerful military country in the world, invading a relatively weak pro-Western country. And we are still fighting that war. Israel's attack on Iran, right, followed by the US bunker busters, that's a major and fairly capable pro-Western country attacking a major anti-Western country. And that war is over in less than 2 weeks. So you figure out which side, right, seems to have greater capabilities. On the question of Xi Jinping, yes, we know that the Chinese economy is in really, really bad shape. I think the official statistics that you see do not actually reveal the full picture. I can tell you that I have a number of friends, Chinese friends, working in mainland China. All of them tell me the same story. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've received pay cut, sometimes up to 40, 50% of your annual salary. You cannot generate domestic consumption with that kind of situation. And of course, all this is hidden under the carpet. Xi Jinping's own political situation, here, once again, the Chinese system is pretty opaque, so it's hard to know what's exactly going on. Let me just give you a list of Chinese generals who've been laid off in recent 2 or 3 years. He Weidong, Central Military Commission member, vice chairman. Miao Hua, Central Military Commission member. Li Shangfu, the former defense minister, also CMC member. Wei Fenghe, defense minister, also CMC member. Yo Haitao. All of these are critical individuals in PLA. They've all have been under investigation, charged with corruption scandals and so on and so forth. They've been removed from their offices. Now, I'm not saying that Xi Jinping is stepping down anytime soon or anything like that, but if he were in firm control, these are not things that we expect to see coming from PLA, especially when Xi Jinping has political ambition of unifying Taiwan. You cannot think about launching a major military adventure while going through major personnel shakeup in your military. So I will leave that to you to figure out and determine on your own as to what might be going on in Chinese system.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. And we have 11 minutes, but we are heading to the third round. I'd like to ask a common question to all the panelists that the Korea's new government, Lee Jae-myung government, has inaugurated only 20 days, a little bit more than 20 days. In the meantime, this government, they has declared a policy of pragmatic diplomacy. So it's premature to evaluate this pragmatic diplomacy, but in your perspective, what would be the risk that this pragmatic diplomacy has to face with? And then in order to make this diplomacy success, and what is your advice? What kind of advice you want to do to this government? So I'd like to ask you each person to answer this question with 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think throughout the history there have been many critical junctures that have determined the cohesiveness of the U.S.-ROK alliance. And I think we are facing another one. The big reason is that the U.S. is overhauling its military strategies. The strategic objectives that we had commonly is now needs to be reshuffled. Threat perceptions that we have in common needs to be readjusted. So the important thing that we need to do is to maintain a cohesiveness of alliance, even though there are some changes in the security policies of the United States. In order for that, I think there should be a leadership-to-leadership confidence. I think there are some mutual misperceptions about each other. Of course, not South Korea only, but entire world is looking at Trump not as positively as before. And I don't think as Laura Loomer tweeted in SNS, I think the perception the U.S. has on the Lee Jae-myung government is not as the same as before. So I think the first thing we have to do is to restore and solidify the confidence between two leadership. That's first thing. And second thing is that South Korea's strategic ambiguity is very risky. Now, Trump and Xi Jinping and U.S. and China competition is not a non-zero-sum game. It's gearing towards a zero-sum game. I don't think it's easy for South Korea to guarantee our diplomatic space between U.S. and China. And strategic ambiguity is not as valid option in our diplomacy as before. Lastly, I think there should be a concrete win-win deal making. I think what is very urgent from the U.S. perspective is shipbuilding and MRO cooperations like overhauling and maintenance repair of a U.S. combat ship and aircraft carriers navigating in this area. That's what I think the U.S. would like. And also Alaska LNG pipeline business is something the U.S. wants from South Korea and Japan. And maybe South Korea needs to get something out of the U.S. Maybe becoming one of the members of G7 and revision of U.S. South Korea U.S. atomic energy cooperation agreement. Those are things that we want to get out of the United States. So we know that President Trump is using as tariff as important tool to get something out of countries for the sake of the United States interests. But that should not be only for the United States. There should be a deal making that give benefits to South Korea and the United States altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Cooper? I'll be really brief. I think the most important thing is that South Korea make sure that it's not just the U.S. bilateral alliance that it focuses on, but a network of regional alliances and partnerships that it builds. And the reason is to come back to my earlier comments that President Trump just doesn't believe that deeply in U.S.-South Korea ties personally. And so the best way to insulate Seoul against that sort of thinking is to demonstrate just how valuable South Korea is, not just on the peninsula, but across the region and around the world. And I think the most important thing to do, therefore, is to take an approach that tries to elevate South Korea's role globally and demonstrate real value for South Korean U.S. engagement in the region. So don't just let the bilateral relationship be focused on the peninsula. Don't let the Trump administration try and shift all of the focus just to cross-strait issues. Expand the conversation, make it much broader, and by doing so, show that Korea is an important partner on technology issues, on economic issues, on all the things that Professor Kim just mentioned, like shipbuilding. So I think there's an opportunity there. I don't want to say that it's easy, but I think that sort of initiative would be welcome and well received in Washington.
Thank you. Dr. Tokuchi?
Yes. Japan hosts more than 50,000 U.S. troops on its own soil, including one U.S. aircraft carrier and its task force. South Korea hosts more than 30,000 U.S. troops on its own soil. They are the large majority of the permanent U.S. presence in this region. So, that kind of U.S. permanent presence is the foundation of the regional stability. So therefore, from this point of view, trilateral security cooperation of these three countries, US, Japan, South Korea, is more important than ever. But in this triangular relationship, the weakest link is, of course, Japan-South Korea relationship. Therefore, we two countries, South Korea and Japan, together must work together in order to deepen this relationship. I think right now we can be relatively optimistic about that, particularly from the Japanese point of view. The other day, I had a chance to attend the celebration of the 60th anniversary of the normalization of the diplomatic relationship between South Korea and Japan. And Prime Minister Ishiba and 3 former prime ministers of Japan and the Speaker of the House of Representatives and 8, the Chief Cabinet Secretary, Foreign Minister, Defense Minister, Finance Minister, and so many Japanese politicians and economic leaders and academics and many people gathered in that celebration. I think seeing that, I thought that our future cooperation can be quite positive. So we have to capitalize on this relationship. And for that purpose, the Japanese government and the Korean government should discuss more deeply on common threat perception. It is not only about China. These days, many people focus on China. Of course, it's a large threat and security challenge, so it's quite natural. But due to the strategic partnership between North Korea and Russia, we have to, again, focus on North Korea and Russia. And we have to share the common threat perception in order to deepen our partnership.
Thank you. Professor Liu? I don't know exactly what President Lee means by pragmatic diplomacy. If he means by that term to take some sort of equidistant position between US and China, or playing some sort of balanced role between US and China that once South Korea under Roh Moo-hyun regime thought about playing, then it's going to fail. Right? It failed during Roh Moo-hyun regime. It's going to fail even more miserably in today's situation, precisely because neither US nor China wants that. They actually want South Korea to take a clear position. Right? So here, instead of taking that ambiguous position between US and China, I think what the Lee government should do is individualize these bilateral relationships with great powers. So with the United States, I completely agree with Professor Kim and Zach that there's an opportunity for South Korea to upgrade this alliance to go way beyond the Korean Peninsula. And this alliance actually has great potential to achieve many things because both US economy and South Korean economy are, I don't think they've ever been this complementary, in history. What China cannot do USA in terms of manufacturing, South Korea can do almost everything that China used to do for the United States. And therefore there's a lot of room for bilateral economic trade, industrial cooperation. With China, I think Lee government should take principled approach. Now, this doesn't mean to antagonize the Chinese government, but China also has to meet South Korea on an equal footing. And that has not been coming in the past. So taking a principled approach towards China will actually serve the Lee government very well. Where I think this pragmatic diplomacy will actually shine is with Japan, improving trilateral relationship, US, Japan, South Korea, in other parts of the world. Now, my personal view is I think the Lee government in its early phase made a mistake of not attending NATO meeting. I know the Mainichi report, if that were true, probably the US had informed the Lee government that they won't be meeting with Trump, and maybe that convinced the President Lee not to attend NATO meeting. I'm not talking about the United States, Europeans actually want to do a lot of things with South Korea because they find themselves in a dreadful situation. Europe used to rely on the USA for national security, China for supply chains, on Russia for energy. The relationship with all these 3 external powers is in trouble. Where they want to look for partnership is other Asian countries that can do manufacturing for Europe, and that's South Korea here. Same goes to Southeast Asia, Middle East, South Asia, there are a lot of opportunities for this pragmatic diplomacy to shine, and I think that's where Lee government should focus on.
Thank you very much. And Lee Jae-myung government just started. They inaugurated about 20 days ago. and they declared that the pragmatic diplomacy, and they are shaping what is pragmatic diplomacy. I think today the four panelists, their advice will enrich and will make more pragmatic, really pragmatic diplomacy. I hope this diplomacy will maintain 5 years of create future development and future stability. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'd like to give a big hands to these four panelists. As a chair, I'd like to declare that this session is complete. Thank you very much.
네, 사회를
Thank you very much. Also, we would like to thank the moderator, Dr. Han Seok-ki, as well as the four panel members for their contribution. Mr. Kim Yeon-wook, Mr. Jack Cooper, Mr. Tokuchi Hideshi, as well as Mr. Ryu Yong-wook. Thank you so much for their contributions. We have a wonderful panel of experts who engaged in in-depth discussions. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you to give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Now we will have a short break, and session 2 will resume shortly. Thank you.